It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? After the Disventure Camp 2 video did really well, I knew I had to make another one on Season 1. I didn't think it was going to take this long, so... whoops. I've talked about a lot of these characters before, but not as they appear in Season 1. And given that Season 1 is generally considered to be the best season of Disventure Camp, that gives us a lot of ground to cover. Season 2 doesn't have a bad cast per se, but I think Season 1's original cast blows them out of the water. Pretty much every character this season is someone's favorite, and I'm sure that right now you're looking to see where yours is placed, so let's get into it.
Disappointment in the game of life!
It's not Gabby. I know that at least a few of you went into the comments and were like, I can't wait for Lexi to roast Gabby in 16th place, and are now editing those comments with this result. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, I am more than proud to announce that the worst character in Disventure Camp Season 1, in my honest opinion, is none other than... Fuck, I had it. It was right on the tip of my tongue. Don't tell me. Aaliyah. Okay, real talk. Ashley is nowhere near as bad as a lot of the low tiers in Season 2. I just think she's really lame. I do not believe a single person who says that Ashley was their favorite Season 1 character. It's just like... why? That's like saying your favorite Megamix character is...
The name of this character has been removed in order to keep things civil.
Like there's nothing wrong with them, but there's better options all around. I think it's really funny how she's the member of the original Purple Team Alliance who made it the farthest despite being the least relevant. If you twisted my arm and forced me to cut one character from the cast, I'm not sure it'd be her, but I feel like cutting her would have the least impact. What does she do, really? She has a sweet relationship with Will, but Will is the first boot. So after episode 2, Ashley just becomes Lil's sidekick. Which, you know, that's fine. That's not the worst thing in the world, as long as she brings something to the table. She does not bring anything to the table. Well, nothing except her silly little southern sayings that she likes to bring up every now and then. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that Ashley is an offensive portrayal of southern people or anything, far from it. But I'ma tell y'all something. There ain't no goddamn way that anyone in the South has ever said the phrase, when the rooster crows. I don't know what kind of Yankee-danky doo-dah shit that's supposed to be, but that's not right. You know, y'all really be out here thinking every Southern person lives next to a farm. Well, let me fix your discombobulated worldview real quick. You are only partially right. Embarrassing fact about myself, I like to sing sometimes, so I'll go out in the mornings and sing when everyone's still asleep, and I get very self-conscious because these fuckers always stare at me. It is so uncomfortable. I don't know why they do that. Cows are weird. But Lexi, why are you talking about this? It does- Hush! I ain't done yet. I refuse to believe that Ashley is a real Southern person. She's a fucking skinwalker disguising herself as a Southern person. Sure, she might have got you fooled, but I ain't stupid, and if you Ashley fans are gonna pitch a fit because you think Ashley is a charming Southern sweetheart, then you best stay out of the Deep South because your illusion of Southern charm is gonna shatter real quick.
Editor Cam here. I'm going to interject Lech Gang here by making the extreme claim of the fact that Ashley is a goddamn poser. She is not a real Southerner. She ain't even in the Bible Belt. Listen, if there's not billboards promoting the immaculate amounts of weed, if there's not any CBD shops right next to children's toys, if there aren't any sorts of roosters croaking, and even though you don't even have to live near a farm, there's just someone has a rooster. At least 3 different people have roosters. Or if you don't have any crazy neighbors setting fires to their homes for no reason, if you don't even have goddamn biscuits and gravy, if you can't even leave your house without seeing 10 different churches, yes, I counted on a walk once, 10 different churches within your area, all of which are of dubious morality, that's not even, you're not in the Bible Belt, you're not even in the right place, alright? That's why I declare that Ashley's a poser. Okay, well maybe the rooster thing did happen, but I guarantee you this motherfucker uses Eastern Standard Time. Hey, blah, blah, blah. By the way, this is all /J. I know Odd Nations isn't an American company. Don't cut me some slack.
Y'all know what a burn pile is? See, where I live, everybody has this big-ass burn pile in their backyard, and what they do with that is that any garbage that's too big to fit in the garbage can gets thrown out onto this pile and burnt. And I tell y'all all that because I have more to say about these white trash atmosphere killers than I do about Ashley. She's boring! And not even in the same way that she's boring in All-Stars, where she's just so obviously underwritten that we can talk about it. Nah, here she's just chilling in the least entertaining way possible. I've been hard on Ashley's accent in the past, and to be fair, a southern accent is kinda hard to do. In fact, the one I just did is very inaccurate. For a lot of people, their southern accent really only comes out in instances of extreme emotion, like extreme anger, like extreme fear, etc. But I do happen to live with people who have that accent naturally, and they are the two most southern people I think I've ever met. So yeah, Ashley is the most pointless character in this season. I think she's pretty uninteresting, and she's the fakest southerner I've ever seen. Odd Nations, have her say the word cattywampus at least once in All-Stars, and maybe I will be nicer to her. Okay, to be fair, like, Gen Z Southerners, which I think is what Ashley is, they don't really say that word, but I think it'd be funny, so she should do it. Please don't take this section too seriously. And one last note before we move on, none of what I'm saying here is directed towards Ashley's VA. I think she did a great job. I think the biggest reason why I'm calling Ashley a fake Southerner is just the writing behind her. Chris Dolly, you did a good job. Please don't be upset. It's not your fault that I have beef with this fictional character.
You don't talk much, do ya?
Now, for those of you who don't know, the canon iteration of Disventure Camp Season 1 is actually version 2. The original is a little project known as Adventure Camp, but is generally known today as the beta. The storyline of this season is generally the same as in Season 1, with a couple of changes here and there, namely to the elimination order, which is quite a bit different between variations. Obviously, technical aspects like the animation and voice acting were improved, but the biggest change between seasons was the addition of 4 new characters. The first two are Trevor and Derek, who replaced the old host named Jared, which I think was a pretty good change considering Jared didn't really have much of a personality. And then 2 new male contestants were also added to even out the gender ratio a little bit, one of whom was Alec. I'm gonna be honest, Alec has never been a character that I wanted to put in 15th place. Ha ha ha! I gotcha. You thought. Yeah, this is Drew, no big surprise. Now, I don't dislike Drew. In fact, I think he's got a lot of little things about him that I quite like. First of all, this one's gonna sound stupid, but I like how his sweater is orange. There's no big reason behind this, I just think it helps with the overall color scheme of the cast. It makes him stand out. His design in general is also pretty good. I guess you could say he's just a basic white boy, but he's a very nicely designed basic white boy, so you gotta give him credit for that. He radiates little guy energy, and that's largely what his character is like as well. Drew has a fun little gimmick. He doesn't speak, so instead he writes down everything he wants to say. I especially like how he writes down yay in episode 2, like, he's such a little guy. Despite how little screen time he has, Drew has a very well-established personality. And while a lot of this is more apparent in his greetings, I think it's still evident in his short tenure in Season 1. And by short tenure, I mean short. He's only in 4 episodes, and he doesn't have much of a presence in 3 of them. I imagine that Drew technically could have gone a little farther. I don't think he needed to, but if he did, I think his creative gimmick and some of his connections with characters like Gabby would have been good enough to help carry him forward. But there is a very good reason as to why that did not happen. You remember how Drew got eliminated, right? He was writing about Tom's antics up in the night, Gret found out about that, showed it to Tom in an effort to save the girls, and, you know, yeah, it wasn't so good for Drew after that. But as I said, Drew did not exist in the original Adventure Camp, so who do you think took the fall for that in the original? If you guessed anyone other than Mr. I Can't See Without My Glasses, then you clearly haven't been paying attention. Yes, that's right, Dan was in fact the first boot of the beta, and he basically went out in the same way that Drew did with only a few minor differences. But somewhere along the line of Season 1's creation, production thought, you know what, let's give Dan a deeper run. Now why they chose to do this, I have no idea. Dan was mildly strategic back then, so I guess that made him have some fans, but that's my only guess. But that production indecision is fundamentally why Drew exists. He does the things that Dan did so that Dan could get farther, and honestly, in a weird way, I should hold that against him, but I don't know, it kinda works for me. Drew is a filler character by every stretch of the word, but he's got his own identity and enough charm to make it work. Plus, for 3 episodes, I'm not gonna rake him over the coals because he really hasn't done anything wrong. It feels bad to say he gets second from the bottom again, but someone had to go here, and this cast is pretty stacked, so Drew's gotta take this spot. I still think he's cool, though. Now I want to say up front, this video is about Season 1, I promise, and I don't want to make too many allusions to All-Stars. However, I feel like I will need to bring up some things that happen there for the sake of comparison. This will be more prevalent in later sections, but for this one there's really only one thing I'd like to bring up, and that thing is that Tremoli is an infinitely better ship than Trevik. The main reason I think this is because Derek, in every instance he has on screen, just goes to show that Trevor deserves better. After my first viewing of Season 1, Derek was one of the 3 characters that I hated. I don't hate any of them anymore, but I'm still not the biggest fan of him, and honestly I kinda don't get how he was that popular in the first place. Like, what is there to like about him? He serves a passable role as the host. He's the bad cop to Trevor's good cop, the guy who puts ratings above all else because he wants a good show, and that formula really does work. It's just been done much, much better. You just can't replicate the magic of Chris McClane. He's not just charismatic, he has a certain level of stage presence that you can feel in most of the challenges. Derek doesn't quite have that. I don't dislike him, obviously. He's still a pretty solid host, just not one that I have very strong opinions on. I did hate him when I first watched the season, though. I thought he was abysmal. But in retrospect, he doesn't really play that big of a role in the season itself, so he doesn't have enough screen time to really make me hate him. No one is getting worse than Crystal, and it makes me so happy to know that I've convinced a lot of people just how bad she really is. The main reason why he's not at the bottom is because he does have some good moments. And he does work off of Trevor pretty well, to the point where I think this season would be a lot worse if it was just one host doing the same thing. Derek just doesn't quite have the charm of other characters in this vein, like MePhone 4 from Inanimate Insanity.
Well, actually, I had a question about,
Yes?
darn it, I forgot.
Oh, bummer. I really wanted to hear that question. Oh well, let's see who will be the first to go home this season.
Wait, I remembered!
So I want to introduce you.
And that's why he's ranking relatively low.
Hello, I like money.
Alright, now this next character is very special, but before we talk— oh my goodness, Korza Corpse! Is that Nicholas Milton III behind you in a sexy red jumpsuit that I think you'd like? Oh my goodness, guess you better turn around and look at him. Are you looking at him? I'm going to assume that you are looking at him. Okay. Alright, now I need the rest of y'all motherfuckers to be real cool about this next part. This is a matter of life and death. I need y'all to lock in. Go with the flow. Do not slip up. Do not— Oh, Korza, welcome back. I have good news. I have decided to take an intermission from the list to talk about a character that I am truly passionate about. And that character is none other than Nicholas Milton III, the greatest Disventure Camp character that there ever was. I love everything about Nick. He's very suave, he has a strong personality, a compelling personal arc, he has a hat that is very cool, gotta love that hat. When he got eliminated, I was like, whoa, not Nick, he was so good and British and stuff. Truly one of the most tragic eliminations of all time. Anyway, that's the Nick section, so if you are a Nick fan, maybe one named Korza Corpse for instance, you have heard all I have to say about Nick, so you can skip to the time code on screen to go back to the regularly scheduled rankings. I promise you, this was just an intermission to talk about how cool Nick was, and literally nothing else. Next character is at the time code, but please go check that out. I did the Nick set. This is all just, Lechway footage on screen. You can go. Going. Oh boy, I sure do love Nick. Are they gone? Okay, I think they're gone. I'm gonna trust they're gone. Whew, okay, let's hurry this up before they get suspicious. So Nick is good. I like him, just not as much as 3/4 of the cast, but that doesn't matter too much here. Let's talk about our boy. Because Nick kinda got done dirty. You see, back in the beta, which I hope you all remembered, Nick had himself a little adventure. He got himself 4th place, which is quite a bit higher than how he placed in Season 1. And you can probably guess who ended up taking his spot. Now, admittedly, I'm not too sure what happened in the beta. I only know that he got 4th place because Alec didn't exist and they needed some other guy to rock out with Tom and Jake. Not that he needed them anyway, since our boy Nick seemed to do just fine with everyone else on the purple team. Cause Nick had a lot going for him. He had a winning personality, he had great dynamics with his teammates, he had a pretty good backstory about how his parents weren't super duper nice to him. This is good. Nick had the potential, but there was one obstacle in the way that was keeping him down. You see, Nick had all these things, but Alec also had these things, and his accent was sexier. So Nick got cut 3rd, and honestly, the man played his part. The Purple Team Majority Alliance was a red herring. They were portrayed as this big alliance of possible main characters who could have gone all the way, but one by two, Fiori picked them off to establish her dominance, and Nick was the linchpin in that whole plan because he kinda got in his own head. The sad thing about Nick is that it's clear that he could have gone far, could have had his own arc, could have done all this stuff, but he never got the chance to do it. Ashley did. And with the benefit of hindsight, we now know that this was the wrong choice, but let's ignore that for right now. Nick is one of those characters who would really benefit from a 2nd season or some sort of continuation to his story, and I know if anyone is likely to do that, it would be Corps, who hopefully is not watching this right now as I told them to skip to the time code. The ball is in the fans' court. He's got a great baseline character concept, and now it's up to the fans to do what they want with him. Hopefully these fans are responsible and don't, I don't know, make a Nick shrine in their room, but you have to be really, really obsessed with this character to do that. You don't know the things I've seen. You don't know what they've shown me. I'm sad. I really wanted to put Will higher. I really truly did, and I especially wanted him to rank higher than the person immediately after him, so that I could reap the chaos, but no, I've got to stay true to my heart. He's only number 12, and that makes me upset. Look, I don't know how long this section is gonna be. This is Will we're talking about, so I'm just gonna talk about how Will is cool, actually, and maybe you all need to give him a little more credit. Will is one of those characters where I'm like, damn, he could have made it so much further, and that would have been awesome. And I would hope that you'll all agree as well, because that was the goal of the original alliance, I believe. A goal that was met by 3 of them. See, here's the thing, I believe that Will having so much potential actually makes the rest of the cast look better along with him, because how I initially viewed the first 2 episodes was, oh damn, this guy's pretty cool. If he got pegged as the first boot, then everyone else must be really cool, and generally speaking, I was correct in that assumption. Will's got a sweet little relationship with Ashley, and he's pretty funny whenever he gets scared shitless or beat up by Fiori, but truth be told, that's really it, and that's all he needs to be. He's one of those characters who you like not because of what he has offered, but what he could offer if given another shot. Tragically, he didn't get into All-Stars, which would have been cool, but you know what? I can live with that. All-Stars clearly did not deserve him. But yeah, as much as I'd love to rant and rave about Will for at least 3 more pages, I really can't, considering how little content he actually has. His fate is in the hands of the fans. Maybe you can give him the arc he deserves, or maybe I could. Will is fun. I like him.
The others couldn't handle it, 'cause my story's just too sad.
Okay, so, up until this point, I think I've given some fairly basic bitch takes about this cast. That's gonna stop right here. 'Cause you see, there's this one really popular Season 1 character that, I gotta be honest, I don't like them nearly as much as everyone else seems to. Again, not bad, but heavily flawed, and not one that I think stands up to some of the best in the series. And if you predicted that this is where Gabby would place on the list, then I regret to inform you that you have predicted wrong. She is further up. I think that she is significantly better here than she is in All-Stars, and you can probably tell that by the fact that she wasn't in the bottom 2. Ellie, on the other hand, has a few more problems. By all accounts, Ellie should absolutely be my favorite character. Her aesthetic is on point, and I don't think it's controversial to say that she has one of the best designs across 2 seasons. From the moment I finished the first episode, I knew Ellie was someone I wanted to see more of. And that wouldn't happen until Gabby got out. Yeah, these two never got to be relevant at the same time. I can definitely understand why people were so upset that Jake and Tom got so much time together between both seasons, whereas Ellie got comparatively a lot less focus. They definitely deserved more time together, but can we maybe stop saying that Odd Nations hates lesbians? That's just no, let's not do that. Let's be nice. I'm still really not that big on Ellie, and here are a few reasons why. First of all, her story is very backloaded. She has her moments prior to episode 9, but for the most part she's playing second fiddle to Fiori, Alec, and Gabby, and that's not a good look. I was honestly a little worried that she was gonna end up like Tess, to where she had nothing going for her other than a cool aesthetic and maybe a girlfriend that she gets no screen time with. It got scarily close to being that way. But thankfully she does pick up, and it's not like she didn't have anything going on in the pre-merge. After all, there is her best and most relevant dynamic with Alec. I really like the way these two play off each other, and I'm especially impressed that they were able to weasel their way into a power position against a vast majority alliance. That's not something you usually get to see in Total Drama adjacent series, so I give them props for that. I also like the way their relationship changes over time. They aren't just close friends for the entirety of the show. Ellie does get mad at Alec, and he doesn't always act in her best interest either. One thing I'll give Disventure Camp credit for is how a lot of the character dynamics aren't just friendships or rivalries. There's a lot of versatility in there, and I think Ellie and Alec is a good example of this. I was gonna have a joke here and say that Ellie's next most important relationship was with Jake, but I'm gonna have to save them for last, so we might as well get Gabby out of the way. They're fine, I think they're cute enough, they've got that good girl, bad girl thing going on, but like, I don't think they're all that interesting as a couple. Compare them to Jake and Tom, who had so many ups and downs throughout the season, as well as, in my opinion, much more natural chemistry between the two. Hey gang, just want to make a quick addendum here because I wrote this part of the script before I did the DCAS 19 review, so if it feels like I'm contradicting myself here, I'm really not. I prefer Ellie in All-Stars and Tom Jake in season 1, if you couldn't tell. And in All-Stars, Ellie actually does have this kind of up and down dynamic that I'm talking about, where it's just not all stale, happy Yuri stuff. So I just wanted to mention this because it's relevant to the section I was just talking about, and also to say that I don't hate everything about All-Stars, despite what people think. Okay, back to the video. And since this relationship overshadowed Ellie so much, what we're kind of left with the girls is just, oh hey, girls kissing. You kind of have to wonder what it is they even like about each other. I think Ellie's the type of person who would really get annoyed with Gabby's "you vote to me" ouch shtick. I don't know, just kind of something I noticed. I just think these two needed more screen time, and quite frankly, I think they deserve the spinoff more than Tom and Jake did, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Speaking of, oh god. Okay, so probably one of season 1's most famous or infamous moments, depending on how you look at it, is the whole thing between Jake and Ellie in episode 11. Now to catch you up to speed, in case it's been a little while since you've seen season 1, Ellie found herself in some trouble at the final 6. Tom, Jake, and Miriam were definitely gonna send her out in 4th, and Ellie needed a way to turn the tables. And the way she did this was very simple. You see, she goes up to Jake, who she's friends with by this point, and then her strategy is very, very straightforward. In order to get him to vote with her, she tells Jake that Tom is cheating on him, exploiting a very real trauma that she knows about, and then takes advantage of Jake's emotional state to get him to vote for Tom. And if it sounds like I really hate the fact that she did this, that is because I do! Ellie would be 7th if not for episodes 10 and 11. Yeah, no, I just can't get behind this. I get the reasoning, she's impoverished and she'll do whatever it takes to win, but that doesn't really excuse this in my mind. It's just a very nasty, malicious thing to do to someone, and something that does not sit well with me at all. This is probably top 3 cruelest things that anyone in Disventure Camp has done, not named Rhea. This could have permanently ruined Jake and Tom's relationship, and I don't like that. And if you're gonna say that I'm being too dramatic about this, imagine if Dan broke up Ellie this way. Tell me how you'd feel about that. I've also heard the argument thrown around that, oh yeah, it sucks that Ellie did that, but what else could she have done? And that is a good question, so I came up with an alternative that I think would have worked better. And this solution would also fix another problem that I have with Ellie that I haven't told you about yet. Almost every character in season 1 has a moment of vulnerability. Miriam, Tom, Jake, Gret, Alec in small doses, but he obviously does get more in All-Stars, Dan, and of course, Gabby. These moments do a good job of humanizing the characters and getting us as the audience members to sympathize and root for them. That's why Fiori doesn't get one, because she's the villain. But how come Ellie doesn't get anything? What if we killed 2 birds with 1 stone real quick? What if instead of what we got in canon, we got a scene like this? After Fiori and Alec have made it abundantly clear that Ellie is going to be eliminated at 4th if she sticks with the majority alliance, she begins to panic. Her victory and her one chance at earning the money that will get her out of poverty and the grueling life she lives is starting to slip away, and that terrifies her. But she realizes that everyone left in the game is competing to win as well. They're going to stick to their alliances and do whatever is in their best interest to win. No one is going to stick their neck out for her. No one, except maybe Jake. The two start talking the same as before, and it starts off normally. Jake even remarks about how much he likes talking to her. But Ellie fires back, and she asks Jake if he'd be willing to take her to the final 3 over Tom or Miriam. And Jake struggles to answer, but given that he's an honest guy, he reluctantly admits that he would also cut her 4th, just like Alec said. And this is where Ellie starts to play the pity card, recounting to Jake about how hard her life is, working 2 different jobs and just barely scraping by, having to live paycheck to paycheck while the other adults her age got to go party and go on dates and pursue their passions. And as she gets to that point, the fake desperation and sadness stops being fake. Ellie pleads with Jake to take her side here, and Jake tries to calm her down by saying that he and Miriam would lend her some money if they win. And then Ellie asks about Tom, and Jake doesn't have an answer for her. And to explain why Fiori and Alec wouldn't be targets here, we can just say that Ellie told Jake that they would be willing to offer her some money if they won. So based on these pretenses, reluctantly, Jake votes Tom under the impression that Ellie needs the money more than anyone else, and that Tom will understand. Tom does not understand, and he and Jake still do break up, but this time, Ellie does not intentionally break them up or exploit either of them to do so, and this actually puts more blame on Jake for his failure to communicate. Fiori can still incite fighting between Jake and Ellie the same way she does in canon, but this time probably bending the truth a little to make Ellie seem more nefarious than she actually was. Bam! Now tell me that does not sound better than what we got. If nothing else, I think you can agree that this hypothetical would sell Ellie's desperation to win much more than the original, and uses Ellie's struggles with poverty in a more direct and impactful way. And with that, I think I'm about done with Oh my god, this section is 4.5 pages long. Okay, quick wrap up. Ellie is a good but flawed character, and even though she's this low on the list, I still do like her. I just would have done a few things differently, but that's fine. It still doesn't take away from the fact that I do enjoy her. In sharp contrast to the last section, this one is probably going to be pretty short, because to summarize Trevor in just 2 words, he is a vibe. Too many hosts in these types of shows just try to emulate Chris. That's what Derek tried to do, and it's what Crystal tried to do, and the result of that is that we got Chris but boring, and Chris but infuriating. But Trevor is fully and unabashedly his own man. You can tell that this is a man who is very passionate about his show, but not in the same way as a Chris McClain. Trevor's a nice guy. He's not mean, he's not spiteful, he's just trying to make a good show, and honestly, I can respect that. He's just a sweet guy with a genuine passion for the show he wants to create, and you can hear that in every line that Silly Billy delivers. And because I know Silly Billy, and because I know he's going to watch this video, you know what? I think I'm gonna make most of this section about him. I don't think there's any other English-speaking VA that could bring quite the same energy to Trevor's performance that Silly Billy does. They are practically inseparable from one another. When I watch a Silly Billy video, I hear Trevor talking about Total Drama and Disventure Camp, and when I hear Trevor doing something in the show, like reading out eliminations, I hear Silly Billy doing all of that. Because that raw YouTuber energy is exactly what Trevor needed, and I don't think anybody but Silly Billy could have done that. And Billy, my friend, I know by the time you're probably watching this video, you've just gotten back from a long day of teaching, you're probably exhausted, and you maybe might be feeling a little underappreciated. I don't know how nice those kids are. I can't say. But the point is, you rocked it. You did a great job. You are living the dream. Gold star for you, my friend. Clearly you have mastered the art of the YouTube voice. Apparently he's better at it than I am though, cause he's in Disventure camp and I'm not, but I'm not jealous. But yeah, Trevor makes it to top 10, less for what he does and more for what he is. The hosts this season get a lot less screen time, but considering how bad the host plot was in season 2, I think that's a welcome change. That just means that whenever we do see Trevor, it's a bit of a treat and it keeps him from getting stale. The hosts do have a plot this season, but we're gonna get to that a little later. Otherwise, yeah, no, Trevor's just cool, and I like him, and I hope he likes his placement on this list.
I'm not fat!
One thing I noticed upon rewatching Season 1 is that a lot of characters seem to be going through a very similar arc in All-Stars as they did in their debut season. There are some minor differences, yes, but it's obvious to me that they always had a very specific vision, at least for Gret. I gotta be honest, I wasn't initially very fond of Gret during my first viewing, but upon rewatch, I've really grown to appreciate her a lot more. Unlike Crystal and All-Stars Rhea, she's a villainous character that I can actually tolerate because of her natural charisma. The way she manipulates Gabby is very natural and very slimy. Given how much of an outsider Gabby was shown to be by that point, it makes complete sense as to why she'd fall for Gret's schemes. Dare I say, Yule could have taken notes. Disventure Camp really likes to play around with morally complex situations and morally gray characters, and I think that Gret is one of the best examples of this. Is she a villain? Well, in the traditional sense, yes, she was the main person causing conflict on the Cyan team and certainly did a lot more bad than good during her stay at Tipiska. But we also get plenty of moments where she's more vulnerable, which Ellie also really could have used, but I won't harp on that any more than I have to. For the first few episodes, there's nothing about Gret that makes her sympathetic, but then in episode 5, we get to hear her phone call with her mother, and this call changes the trajectory of her character for the better. I think it's very commendable how Gret went from an obnoxious villain to a sympathetic one in really just one scene. That's a really good example of good writing. And from then on, we get to see Gret's facade begin to crack more and more, which is demonstrated very well with her elimination. Whoops, JK, she's actually just switching teams. That's fun. I really like how confidently she exits, only to be seen crying at the bench while she waits for the bus. That's a very nice touch as well. I like the new purple team, but I'm not, like, the biggest fan of it. I personally thought that Ellie had a lot better connections with Fiori and Alec than Gret does. She does have plenty of good scenes with them though, namely the one where she opens up to the two of them in episode 9. I really like this scene because it reestablishes Gret's struggle without being too heavy-handed in the process. Plus, it gives the other two some characterization as well, with Alec being sympathetic to the matter and struggling on his own. Meanwhile, Fiori just doesn't give a fuck because she's just that bitch. One thing I don't fully understand though is why Gret got eliminated the second time. Like, wow, Alec, that's a pretty big gamble you're taking there. You sure it wouldn't be a better idea to go for, like, Jake or someone? He must have been real confident that he could sway Ellie and that she in turn could sway Jake. 4D chess god, or a misplay on Alec and Fiori's part, I'm leaning on the latter, but it's really not that big a deal. Gret's exit is still handled very well, and I can't help but smile seeing her confidently walk out of there with her head held high. For a normal character, this would be a treat, but for someone who started out as conniving as Gret, goddamn, that's some good character development. You know, whenever I see Ellie fans gas her up as this morally complex character who's one of the best in the series, I can't help but feel like Gret is closer to the character they're really describing. Ironic how Gret is the more fleshed out of the two and she has 3 less episodes of screen time. Maybe it has to do with how Vanessa Venture really sells the character. You rocked it, V, and you're still rocking it in All-Stars, even if the writing isn't as tight this time. Now, given how much I've been talking Gret up, you're probably gonna see the next 2 characters and be like, Lexi, what the fuck? How are these 2 characters above Gret? And I have an answer for that. You just ain't gonna like it. Lil is cool, Lil is fun, put some respect on her name because I am tired of this queen being overlooked. I can pretty easily sum up all the reasons why I like Lil so much. Number 1, smash. Number 2, I felt like she had a very strong first impression right out the gate. I like how she got along with Nick, and there were certainly a lot of things that could have been done with these two in a second season, or a season where they don't get 12th and 11th respectively. And despite the fact that Lil only competes for 5 episodes, she does a lot in her limited time on the show. now. During my first viewing, I was fully expecting for all the heroes on the purple team to be dumb, stupid idiots who don't ever consider the idea that Fiori might be evil despite all the evidence to the contrary. But no, that doesn't happen. Lil takes Fiori's side with Will, but she's perceptive enough to start picking up on Fiori's weird behavior as early as episode 3, and that was genuinely a very pleasant surprise. But I'll go into more detail about this when I reach Fiori's section since this is more relevant to her. Out of the 4 characters in the Purple Team Heroes Alliance, Lil feels the most like a fleshed out character to me. Nick comes close, but I feel like he was a character who needed more time to come into his own given his storyline would have had to have been long term. And as much as I love him, Will just went out too soon to be fleshed out in any meaningful way. Ashley's house caught on fire one time. Anytime Lil interacts with anyone, I keep wanting to see more. Like with Ellie, for example, I think these 2 characters would have had a very interesting dynamic provided they both stayed long enough to form one. Lil and Fiori, Lil and Alec, Lil and Ashley, she just works so well with all of them. Hell, I'd imagine it'd also be really fun to see her bounce off the Cyan team. Okay, quick disclaimer. I've just now realized that I've been calling this team the Cyan team the entire time, when it's actually the Teal team. Whoops. But, I think you can understand my mistake, so just to keep that in mind, you know which team I'm referring to. She could relate to Miriam as an older woman. She could be a supporting figure for Gabby. She and Dan could do something, God knows he needs it. Despite how much I would have loved to see her go further, I understand why she was cut. The Purple Team heroes all pre-merging was a huge subversion, and had Lil stayed any longer, a lot of potential plotlines for her probably could have been filled out by Miriam with little issue. And as you can tell, I like Miriam quite a bit, judging by her not being mentioned yet, so I'm okay with how this happened. I still gotta give Lil credit for being a very solid and very rootable early boot. I doubt she'll ever compete again, but goddamn if she does, I'm gonna be there day one to support her.
Telling you, Chris, this gay pride parade's getting out of hand.
You're gonna call me crazy for this. You may say that I'm an absolute buffoon for this placement, but you know what? Forget it. I don't give a fuck what any of you think. I get to choose my placements, and in 7th place, I'm putting my man Dan. You know what the worst part of it was? I never figured out what I could have done better. I ate beside my teammates who had fans from the start, fans who loved them for who they were. And I'm not naive enough to say that I had no fans of my own, but that's what it felt like. For every one person who was there to lift me up, there was another who called me a waste. They treated me like a joke, like it didn't matter in the slightest. The only time these people ever even perceived me was when they needed to complain about me getting 9th place. Not even winning, I just... You don't even care now, do you? You're not here because you care about what I have to say. You're just here because you want to see if your favorite's placed high. My entire section has been corrupted, and you'll probably just see that as a novelty. I'm used to that, though. This spot was for Dan, but I'll be honest, I don't even know if I am him anymore. I mean, to some degree, I must be. I still feel his sorrow, his resentment, his rage, and... Wait, since when have I been this angry? Was it when Gabby voted me off? I don't understand. I was angry, yes, but I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. We made up after the show. What are you going to do to her? No, I changed my mind. Please, I want to go back. Please, you can't hurt Gabby. She's my friend. Miss Imperia, please, you... No, please, I'm sorry!
You got till 5 o'clock, you hear me? You got till 5 o'clock! You freaking psychopath!
I do not like the way Fiori sounds. That's not to say that Aubrey Lima is a bad VA, far from it. She does an amazing job hitting all of Fiori's emotions, of which she has many. The voice is too high for me.
It's just that I prefer to go unnoticed.
It's not bad enough where I have to turn down the volume if ever she's on screen, because I can watch her in the episodes by themselves. But while I was gathering footage for this video and listening to those Disventure Camp but only blank is on screen compilations, I had to listen to Fiori uninterrupted for a long time, and that really wasn't fun for me. Aubrey, on the off chance that you're watching this, please don't feel discouraged. You did a great job, you absolutely killed it, you're a tremendous actress, and I think you're gonna do a wonderful job as Sam. Your voice for Fiori was just a little too high for my hypersensitive ears. The Polish dub did not have this problem, and so I think I can rank Fiori a lot more fairly than I probably would have otherwise. Maybe now is probably a good time to get into that since I spent an entire page rambling. This is Fiori. She is a child, and she is evil. Stewie Griffin, I rest my case. Okay, no, I actually do have more than that. I have too much respect for Fiori to compare her to a Family Guy character. I mean, you'd have to be really bad to sink that low. I was really worried that Fiori was going to be portrayed as this ultra-manipulative mastermind who fools everyone with her innocent baby bitch act, and then her true nature doesn't get revealed until the finale. And then when that happens, everyone's like, whoa, what, Fiori was evil? She was the imposter among us? That's so crazy. Can you believe that, Will? But that didn't happen because Season 1 had this thing called a balance patch. Fiori's act really only carries her through Will's elimination, partially through Nick's, and then at the first merge elimination, since the Teal team obviously never got to know her that well. Lil, girl boss that she is, was starting to pick up on something fishy even before Nick got out. While you could argue that Fiori burning Nick and Ashley's things was a 4D chess move to isolate Nick and vote him out, I personally believe that Fiori overplayed her hand and had to swap to Nick out of necessity. Her going for Lil at the time wasn't a smart move, but it's one that I believe Fiori would make considering how well she turned everyone against Will. All things considered, this could have been a game-ending move. What, you think Fiori had enough rapport with Ellie to sway her to the villain's side? Nah, that only happened because Alec formed a bond with her early on. I like this because it doesn't make anyone on the purple team look like an idiot. Everything they do makes sense and the characterization is very consistent and very well written. And it also makes Fiori's other game moves all the more captivating. I think that Fiori is at her best around the midpoint of the season. She's still a very commanding threat, but she also has plenty of funny moments that make her endearing to watch. As far as antagonists go, I much prefer Yule, but I would be remiss if I said that Fiori wasn't a lot more nuanced. Whereas Yule is entirely irredeemable, Fiori has Alec. I'll talk about how their dynamic affects Alec when we get to him, but I think it does a lot to humanize Fiori. It's not very clear how Fiori feels about Alec, but I've always stuck with the interpretation that she does actually like him. And you could easily attribute that to the fact that she's being nice to him while also being her authentic self around him. But for me, it's the subtle ways in which Fiori behaves differently when she's with Alec and only around Alec. This tells us two things. The first is that Fiori is a genuine human being who is capable of giving and receiving kindness, and the second is that Aubrey Lima is a truly stellar VA. Seriously, I think everyone who voices on this show does a really great job, except for, like, the Zionist. I can understand why people were disappointed that the storyline between Alec and Fiori wasn't fleshed out more in All-Stars. It would have been really cool to see Fiori develop into a more well-rounded person, with a guardian figure who's actually willing to treat her like a person and not a monster. Because at the end of the day, Fiori is still just a kid having fun, and it's hard to watch Season 1 without getting swept up into her antics.
Victory is mine!
Sorry, I had to.
Alright, I get it!
Well, speak of the devil, look who it is. For you see, as Alec, you actually do care about your son. Alright, screw you, I'm gonna go find that hot ginger chick. Okay, well, it seems as though that comment didn't age particularly well. Okay, now that we're at this section, I think now is as good a time as ever to explain an ongoing joke that I keep making in my reviews. Some of you might know that I have excessively compared Alec to Brian Griffin in a lot of my Disventure Camp All-Stars reviews. The reason that I've been doing that is because these two have a lot of similarities, both in their personalities and in their narrative developments. If you've ever seen an episode of Modern Family Guy, or if you grew up watching Mr. Enter like I did, you might have heard about how Brian really degraded over time. And if you haven't heard about that, well, here's a really quick rundown so we can get back to what you actually came here for. Here are a list of problems that people generally take with modern Brian Griffin. Do these descriptors sound at all familiar to you? Well, I think they should. I think this explains the comparison a little more. But here's the thing, Brian used to be good. In the first few seasons of the show, he was the voice of reason amidst the chaos. He had a dry sense of humor that really worked with the zany cast around him, and his live and let die attitude complemented that.
Oh, come on, if every woman dumped her husband just for crashing a blimp into the Super Bowl, no one would be married.
And I liked him, and this is generally how I feel about Alec in Season 1. I didn't intentionally put him right after Fiori on the rankings, but I'm glad it worked out that way because these two are at their best when they're playing off of each other. Fiori is intelligent. She comes up with a lot of great strategies and gameplay maneuvers that earned her a spot in the finale, but she's also a kid, and kids are a little stupid sometimes, and emotional, don't forget that. This is where Alec comes in. You could not ask for a better right-hand man. Not only was Alec loyal to a fault, but he was also a great PR manager. There were 2 instances where Ellie's vote was absolutely vital for the villain's survival in the game, and Fiori maybe could have gotten her on board with that, but it would have taken a lot of convincing. Alec did not have that problem. Alec in Season 1 is very emotionally intelligent, and probably the strongest social player in the season. He keeps his main allies close, his potential allies always within arm's reach, and stays under the radar whenever he has to deal with the other team or an enemy alliance. The impression that I got from Alec is that he'd fight tooth and nail to keep his important allies in the game, but if they did somehow get eliminated, he could quickly shift gears without drawing too much attention to himself. I'm probably overselling him, but that's how he came off to me, and this is why I think he's one of my favorite characters to watch from a strategic angle, but that's not the only reason why I like him. Season 1 has a lot of very strong and very vocal personalities, so this makes the usually quiet and reserved Alec stand out a lot more. What's this guy's deal? Why does he seem so disinterested with everyone around him? Well, we get to see what his deal is very quickly. His expressive design and Anthony Stewart's crisp vocal performance conveys nearly everything you need to know about who Alec is. Well, except for the fact that he's got a wife and son. I really didn't clock that he was in his 30s in my first viewing, but maybe that just makes the reveal of his family that much better. And on that note, I personally would have preferred if this part of his backstory was expanded upon more in Season 1. And by that I don't mean that we needed more scenes of him talking about his wife and son, that might have been too excessive. But I think it would have been nice to see Alec consider his relationships with characters like Gret, Ellie, and Fiori, and use what he's learned to kind of put his relationship with his wife and son into perspective. Maybe after Gret tells him about how her parents treat her, Alec could question how he treats his own son, and come to the realization that he should be a more active parent. Or when Ellie tells him about her financial situation, he could lament on the fact that the money would help Ellie out of her problems, but maybe not his own, and that could be an early hint that his marriage probably won't work out. And with Fiori, I hope the comparisons would be obvious enough to where I don't need to describe them to you. Fiori gives Alec the chance to be a better parent, and to work on himself as a person. Because despite the fact that these two are the villains of the season, they're both better people when they're around each other. And even though I just suggested ways that Alec's arc could have been shown more prominently in the season, I'm still completely satisfied with what we got. Alec doesn't need to be in the spotlight all that much, because fundamentally, he's a support character. And he might even be the best support character in Disventure camp. He's got a likable personality, interesting motivations, and most importantly, he has flaws. Rosa Maria in Season 2 and Ashley in All-Stars are a little too perfect for my liking. They're portrayed as the most noble and likable people in the cast to such a degree that they're never really wrong about anything, and that makes them really boring. Alec is still generally portrayed in a positive light, but his flaws come back to bite him, especially at the elimination, which is honestly the only thing regarding Alec that I don't like. It feels to me like they just had Alec and Fiori fight like this for the sake of le drama, without considering that this isn't a satisfying note to end their relationship on. Here's one way that I think this could have been improved. Have Fiori eliminate Alec like in the show, and have Alec be shocked and angry that Fiori would do this, but by the time they cut to Alec at the bus stop, the scene plays out differently. Fiori sarcastically asks Alec something like, "What's the matter, Alec? Are you mad at me?" And Alec, cool as a cucumber, hits her with the classic, "I'm not mad at you, Fiori. I'm just disappointed." And this would be the only time in the series that we would ever see Fiori look genuinely guilty. This could be followed up on in the finale. Alec doesn't have to help her in the challenge or even root for her, but at the very least, he could help her after her go-kart crashes and then comfort her after her loss. The way that All-Stars concluded their relationship was admittedly very half-baked. Hey, it's me in editing. I wrote this part of the script before episode 19, 20, and 21 2021 came out, and yes, Fiori and Alec do have a lot more in those episodes, so all things considered, their relationship has kind of been mended. I think maybe something a little more conclusive would have been preferable, but I can't complain with what we got. So let it be known that despite how much I make fun of him in All-Stars, I think Alec is pretty damn good in Season 1, and that's an opinion that I'm always going to stand by.
You never see it coming.
I'm going to be perfectly transparent with all of you. For a very long time, I really genuinely hated Gabby in Season 1. She really got on my nerves, and I didn't understand why she was such a fan favorite aside from maybe the fact that she kissed Ellie that one time. But I thought to myself, maybe there's something else at play here, so I ran a little experiment. In order to be completely fair in my rankings, I watched the entirety of the Season 1 Polish dub for Gabby. And in the process, I discovered that the Polish dub is really, really good. I don't understand Polish in the slightest, but I can tell that the VAs are doing a fantastic job and they deliver their lines very well. I'm really glad that I chose to look at the Polish dub because I think I came out of it with an appreciation for a lot of characters that I wouldn't have had otherwise. All the VAs do a great job, but I want to give a special shout out to Fiori, Ellie, Ashley, and weirdly enough, Jensen.
Mogę zadzwonić?
Jeszcze нет, я только начал направлять. До утра будет все хорошо.
Polish Jensen fucking rules. But obviously, the crown jewel of the Polish dub is Gabby herself, voiced by Anna, who is also her voice actress in English. I have immense respect for Anna for portraying a character in what I believe is her second language, and I held that opinion even when I hated Gabby. Because honestly, outside of episode 1, Gabby sounds really good in English. There are a few hiccups here and there, sure, but I think Anna still does a great job despite being out of her element. And that's okay because the Polish dub is Anna in her element. Gabby's vocal performance in the Polish dub is the highlight for me. I feel like Gabby's high energy personality is captured much better in the Polish dub, and that's entirely due to Anna's performance here. Take a drink every time I say the word performance. God, I really shouldn't be writing my script like this. Did I mention that Anna also manages the Polish dub? That is the coolest fucking thing ever. Anna, you're such a badass, and all of you watching this should go watch the Polish dub. I really cannot undersell how good it is. Alright, maybe it's time we talk about the stuff that Gabby actually does in the season. Gabby is pretty much the de facto main character of the pre-merge, a designation that I think she earns. From episode 1, it's made clear that Gabby is very eccentric and prone to mood swings, and this gets her voted off. Whereupon, she finds herself met with Gret, who swiftly takes advantage of her insecurities, and while I do love this plot point, we've already spoken about it. Considering that Tom, Jake, and Miriam are doing their own thing, and Gret is only using her to get further in the game, that means that Gabby is kind of the outsider on the teal team. So who does that leave her with? Well, Ellie, obviously. I do think these two could have had a more fleshed out relationship, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't think their scenes together were really cute. For a long time, I seriously wondered why these two fell for each other in the first place, and now as I'm typing out this script, I think I can see why. Ellie likes Gabby because she's fun. Ellie has been working for her entire life, and her only friend on the purple team is kind of a stick in the mud. But Gabby is fun, Gabby's exciting, and Gabby gives her a break from the cruel reality that is her life. Meanwhile, Gabby likes Ellie because Ellie makes her feel normal. Almost every other character treats Gabby differently. Gret treated her as disposable, the purple team thought she was off her rocker, and most of the teal team just kinda ignored her. I sometimes forget that Gabby was on the same team with Tom, Jake, and Miriam because the only time they really bring her up is when they want her to vote with them, or they want to vote her out. But Ellie likes Gabby because she's Gabby. Gabby doesn't need to be anyone else around her because Ellie always had Gabby's best interest at heart. And this is exactly why she and Dan fell out. He's nice to Gabby, sure, but was he really all that good to her? Rewatching the season, Dan gets just as weirded out by Gabby as a lot of other characters, and while he did try to convince the boys to vote someone else during the teal team's first elimination, he really didn't put up much of a fight, opting to stick with the safe majority instead of helping her. Gabby and Dan are fair weather friends. When the going got tough, he didn't have her back. I used to think the line, "at least she treats me like a person," was an overreaction, but I think I kinda get it now. That's not to say that Dan treated her terribly, but he didn't really view her as a friend, he viewed her as a potential ally that he kinda got along with. Whereas Ellie always valued Gabby's input, enjoyed being around her, and was generally just more accepting of who she was. So when Gabby says, "At least she treats me like a person," what she means is, at least Ellie values my thoughts and feelings. And goddamn, that scene is fire! As is the scene where Gabby goes off on Gret. I think both dubs are really good here. The Polish dub has some raw as fuck acting which really sells the scene, and the English dub is just really funny.
All day I've been doing what you say, and you never ever say thank you! You were sitting on your fat ass this whole time!
I know some people have said that Gabby isn't a good portrayal of someone with bipolar disorder, but I'm gonna counter that. A friend of mine is researching psychology, and he described how Gabby's struggles with BPD is actually very accurate to real cases, with the exception of the second Gabby. The intention of the evil Gabby, I think, is to be a representation of Gabby's intrusive and unhealthy thoughts, which I like. But given how she just sort of appears and Gabby talks to her out loud, it leaves a lot of room for confusion. For all the audience members who don't know what exactly she's struggling with, they might confuse this for schizophrenia or DID because the visual is pretty confusing. But overall, I do think this works. Gabby is a really solid character made even better in the Polish dub. As for All Stars Gabby, yeah, no, I genuinely really do not like her. Her reasons for turning on her teammates are far less justifiable than her reasons at Season 1. That, and people are way too quick to forgive her for all the bad things she's done. But, Season 1, yeah, she's my GOAT. Well, aside from the three above her, I guess.
I'm gay.
Yeah, no, it was always going to be these three at the top. Most of the characters this season are solid, and a lot of them are very good, but I think these three are on a whole nother level entirely. Genuinely, any member of this trio could have been at number 1, and having to put one at third is rough because I genuinely think that Jake, Tom, and Miriam for Season 1 are the best written characters in the show. I think James from Season 2 is my overall favorite just because he's the funniest fucking character on Earth, but this is no small feat. So, after a lot of deliberation, I eventually came to the conclusion that there was one member of this trio who I liked just a little bit less than the other two, and that character is Jake. Nowadays, Jake has a reputation, and one that I think he deserves, but even back then, people were saying that he was whiny and obnoxious, and for Season 1, I really don't think he is. There's a lot to like about Jake right from the get-go. He's got a very nice design, he's very casual without being boring, he's really cute, and he has a lot of natural charm that helps him stand out. Major props to Josh, Jake's VA, who does a perfect job of hitting all of Jake's emotional moments. And given how emotive Jake is, and how many emotions he goes through in the season, that's really saying something. He starts off being portrayed as the sweet boy next door, a relaxed, somewhat confident guy to bounce off of Tom, who had that whole spy thing going on. These two have really good chemistry with one another, and I can see why they were so popular when the series first released. Jake is the exact type of extroverted and kind person that Tom needed to open up, and I like how he never pressured Tom into removing his mask, or doing anything that he was uncomfortable with. At least, at first. Yeah, Jake gets himself into a lot of trouble in Season 1 because he doesn't really think things through. He's one of the most emotional people in the competition, and that means he is very prone to being manipulated or not listening to people when he should. You know how in a lot of romance anime, there's always that one moment where the leads have a misunderstanding and it leads to one of them to run away, not allowing the other person to explain? Yeah, Jake is like that, but I think it's okay since this isn't a product of lazy writing, it's Jake's core character flaw, and I think that adds another dimension to his character. He's not entirely treated as a victim because, due to his paranoia and trust issues, he does make decisions that genuinely hurt people. He didn't let Tom explain himself when Ellie lied about his true motivations, and that really broke Tom. And while I do think that everything Jake said to Ellie in the cave was mostly correct, he never fully came to terms with the fact that this was also his fault. I'm guessing that if Ellie never turned Jake against Tom, there probably would have been some other incident that resulted in a similar falling out, given that this is a flaw that Jake needs to overcome. He's a believably flawed character who is still likable enough for me to root for him. Despite his quirks, he still has a lot of redeeming qualities to him, and most of these are shown in his interactions with Miriam. I think this dynamic is very sweet. If it's not my favorite of the series, it's certainly up there. Until episode 5, Miriam has just been a crotchety old lady who is going to get voted off sooner or later just by nature of her being unpleasant. But Jake is the first person to truly relate to her, making her feel as though she has a place at camp. Miriam is obviously a very important guardian figure for Jake, but I think people forget about how much he helped her as well. Because once upon a time, Jake used to be one of the most personable people in the cast. He wasn't snapping at people, he wasn't being passive-aggressive towards anyone, and he never got angry at anyone just because they had a conversation with one of his friends. Essentially, he used to act like someone who was over the age of 14. And it's because of his personability that Miriam felt comfortable enough to befriend him and later adopt him. I know it's not technically adoption, but I don't care, this is funnier. I racked my brain for a while trying to figure out more to say, but Season 1 Jake really doesn't need that much explanation. He's straightforward, his motivations make sense, he has a likable personality, plenty of good dynamics, a great design, and hell, he can even be funny sometimes.
She said that you were the one who voted for Drew because, get this, he found out you were a spy?
I think he's probably the best representation of the morally gray theme that Season 1 was trying to capture with its characters. Couple that with a fun personality and how completely and utterly attractive I find him, and Jake solidly takes the bronze medal on this list. This Jake. I don't know who the hell that is in All-Stars, but that is hashtag not my Jake.
You done, kids? Get off my property!
I don't know if anyone else has picked up on this, but there's a certain archetype of character that appears in almost every season of Disventure Camp, and I like to call this archetype the moral compass. The moral compass is usually morally in the right in every discussion. While other characters are arguing or doing villainous things, the moral compass is there to tell them off. Meanwhile, the other characters are like, wow, you're so good and wise and smart and awesome, what would we ever do without you? There are 4 characters who fall into this category, and 3 out of 4 of them, not good. Rosa in Season 2, and then Ashley and Connor in All-Stars. The problem with these characters is that because they're being hyped up as paragons of virtue, they don't have any meaningful flaws. This is especially evident with Rosa and Ashley, who are really only there to serve as support to the characters who actually have an important role to play. And all the depth and characterization they have outside of that is either told to us by the other characters or incredibly surface level. Connor has it a little bit better since his sad old man routine technically counts as a flaw, but that is all I'm going to give him. But the last character who falls into this archetype is one I really like, the crown jewel in fact. This is a character with meaningful flaws, a compelling personality outside of the characters they support, and genuine win equity. And if you haven't guessed, I'm talking about Miriam. There's a lot that I could say about Miriam, but I guess I could start with the one thing that makes her leaps and bounds better than those other 3 characters I just brought up. Miriam actually has an arc. When Miriam arrives at camp, she is incredibly cranky and short-tempered. She's rude to almost everyone, and it looks like she stands no chance of making it to the merge. She does seem to be pretty good at the challenges though, but how long can she really keep this up? My guess at the time was probably not long. Given how relationships were forming on the Teal team, Miriam didn't have any close bonds to keep her safe. And then episode 5 happened. As we just discussed, this is the episode where she and Jake really start to bond, and it's very interesting to see unfold. Jake has just been informed that his grandmother has passed away, and this strikes a chord with Miriam. Despite being very standoffish and rude for the entirety of the competition thus far, she makes sure to comfort Jake in his time of need because the pain of losing a loved one is a pain she knows all too well. Miriam lost her husband and son in a car accident, which is a reveal that genuinely shocked me the first time I experienced it, but it's perfectly set up and leads to a very heartwarming moment where she and Jake share a hug before working together to decimate the other team in the challenge. Miriam and Jake are a really good pair, but Miriam has plenty of other dynamics that I think are also good. Tom is generally smart enough to stand on his own in this season, but whenever he needs support or someone to lean on, that person is usually Miriam. You can tell that these two have a lot of respect for one another, and they show that by covering each other's weaknesses. Tom helps Miriam with a lot of physical tasks, and Miriam tries to keep Tom from losing his mind over stupid things that Jake has done. I also think that she and Ellie are an interesting pair, but unfortunately we don't get to see much of them together outside of a few small scenes and in the final 4. These interactions show that Miriam can actually play the game, and pretty damn well at that. She was definitely the strategist in her alliance, and I don't think anyone is going to debate that, especially not her. I don't really have any complaints as to how her character was used, but if I dug deep to try and find one, I think maybe she should have had a more prominent dynamic with Fiori. As is, these two don't really have the same connection that Rhea and James did in Season 2, and that leaves the finale feeling a lot less personal, and that's a shame because I think there's a lot to work with here. Ignoring the fact that this is the oldest contestant versus the youngest, Miriam started the season as a grumpy old lady with no friends and no aspirations to win, and then over time she gradually became a more active player who developed close bonds with her teammates, which led to her her winning the whole season. Fiori, meanwhile, is the exact opposite. She pretended to be a sweet and innocent little girl just to acquire allies, and then turn on those allies when they weren't of any use to her. All of that left her alone in the finale, with only Gret there to help her pick up the pieces of her game. All things considered though, that's a minor nitpick. I love Miriam, and I think that she was a great winner for the season. Ultimately, both Tom and Jake made too many mistakes over the course of the season, and that left Miriam to lock in and take the gold for herself. In this list though, she's going to have to settle for silver, which is still a damn high honor considering the competition. Only one character managed to beat her out, and you're not getting any bonus points by guessing who that is. So let's get to him now. It's gotta be obvious who takes the #1 spot, right? I mean, I've talked about the characters he's closest to, his involvement in the season, and at this point I think it's very evident why this man is the best character in Season 1. So with that being said, I know you're probably chomping at the bit to hear all about him. Let's finally talk about Jensen! I have seen very few villains in media who are as mysterious and menacing as Jensen. You don't get to see much of Jensen at first. He's always just moving about in the background, barely noticeable until someone calls attention to him. Or when he shows up in the post-credits scene. The mystique of Jensen and what his true motivations are is a lingering mystery that I'm sure everyone watching Disventure Camp was dying to figure out. And all of this comes to a head in the finale, where all the buildup behind Jensen and the foreshadowing of his true character all comes together with his master plan. Stealing the prize money from a geriatric old woman and booking it into a bus, where he is manhandled by Tom until the bus falls off a cliff, presumably, almost definitely, killing him. Jensen is one of the most conniving, most threatening, most powerful villains in all of history. He's right up there with Thanos, Hannibal Lecter, the Joker, Ghostface, Joel Osteen, Ken Penders, P. Diddy, Bill Cipher, Bill S. Preston, Theodore Logan, Spock, The Rock, Doc Ock, and Hulk Hogan. Okay, as you can probably tell by this point, I am joking. None of these people are as evil as Joel Osteen and P. Diddy. Jensen's also not #1 because Jensen is not very well written. He's all build up with no payoff. Kinda like a certain Megamix character, but you're not gonna know who that is until I make that video. What I can say is that the actual #1 is Tom. Big fucking surprise. Tom is probably the character who got the most screwed over by fanon. What I mean by that is that once Season 1 wrapped up, fans flocked to create fan content of Tom that didn't portray him in an accurate or even dignified way. This happens to a lot of fictional characters, with some of the funnier examples being Sans Undertale, Nagito Komaeda, and Alexander Shannara.
How dare she forget about my goat little once-ler?
I feel like over time, people forgot the type of character that Tom really was. Nowadays, he gets characterized as a big dumb himbo with a heart of gold, whose primary contribution to the series is male fan service. This is not the Tom that I fell in love with. I mean, this is not the Tom that I like. Tom is a character who obviously had a great deal of thought put into him. Despite the fact that he only got 6th place, you could argue that he fills the role of main character for most of the season, and I think he works really well in that role. The concept behind his character is very unique and interesting right from the get-go. I mean, come on, how many times have you seen an actual spy in shows like these? The only other one I can think of, sort of, was Philip Shepard. Tom is better than Philip Shepard. I was initially very worried that this Tom is a spy and he's hiding it from Jake plotline was gonna drag out for a very long time, but no, it's actually paced very well. We get enough cues early on that something's up with him, but it's done in a way that isn't too intrusive. By the time that this plotline would start to drag out, that's when Jake finds out about Tom's secret and we get something new. A lazier show probably would have dragged this out for a few more episodes, but I like how Disventure Camp was willing to get creative here. I also like how it's not just a gimmick. This side of Tom actually plays into his character and his relationships in an interesting way, so if you took out the spy part of his character and replaced it with some other secret, I think this plot works just as well because of how real it is. The arguments that Tom and Jake have starting in episode 6 aren't just dramatic, but very well acted and very engaging. Having to confront the idea that your loved one may find out about something that you want to keep secret, only to see them react poorly, is a very scary idea, and I sympathize with Tom a lot in these scenes. And even though Jake really isn't thinking straight, you can see why Tom puts so much stock into what he thinks. Tom is trying to live up to some very high standards set by his agency. He has to hide his face, maintain a professional attitude, and most importantly, he needs to prioritize the mission at all costs, and he's more than willing to do all these things. But it makes him miserable. That's why he likes Jake so much. Jake is that ray of sunshine that makes Tom smile simply by being himself. Jake is naturally very outgoing, and a lot of people seem naturally drawn to him, so an introvert like Tom, who's clearly starved for affection, is like the perfect person to match with Jake. When these two get along, they have some of the best chemistry in the entire show, and when these two don't get along, they have some of the best chemistry in the entire show. And it's during the fallout of their episode 6 confrontation that we get to see some very hard-hitting scenes. Scenes that I will use as inadmissible evidence that Tom was never as dumb as he is in All-Stars. I want you to imagine for a moment that you are Tom. You get along really well with this guy who, over the course of these episodes, is put through the ringer, especially when he receives unfortunate news about his grandmother. You do everything you can to try and help because, well, you really like him, and he seems to like you back. The problem is, you're here for your job, and your job doesn't allow you to keep contact with him after the game is over. And this has you thinking, which is more important to me, my job or Jake? This is a question that stresses you out the more you think about it, but you'll have plenty of time to mull it over, right? That's what you think. Until Jake jokingly mentions your job in a conversation, and your heart sinks. Reasonably, you want to keep this quiet, but Jake starts to lash out, and you're frustrated. Not only is your cover about to be blown, but it's happening because of the guy you trusted more than anyone else. And now, you're left stunned as to how he could turn on you like that. After all you've done to help him, he's genuinely starting to believe that all of it was fake? That's the kind of argument that helps you put things into perspective.
Jake, I'm going to tell you the truth. I really like you. And the days we spent together fishing, gathering supplies, or just talking at camp, it made me rethink some things.
What do you mean?
Yes, I'm here for work. To investigate someone. My agency doesn't allow me to have any contact with anyone here after the investigation is over. But meeting you felt like we quickly had this connection, and I thought, am I really willing to risk everything, my whole career, so we could be something more?
Oh.
But the way you've behaved in the last few days made one thing clear to me. I don't really know you, and I can't risk everything for someone who acts so unpredictably.
Tom, I'm sorry. I was so selfish, thinking only for myself. I had no idea.
That's correct. You had no idea. You never bothered to ask.
But you don't even get to think about it for very long, because the worst possible scenario has come true. Jake blew your cover, and your agency has fired you. He tries to explain himself as best he can, and you know that he didn't mean for any of this to happen. You know that he's sorry, and you know that he really does care about you, but he's making too many excuses. He's sweet, but he's very naive, and he has no idea how big of a problem he's left you with. So you have to explain it to him.
Tom, can we speak? There's something I wanted to tell you last time we spoke. Shortly before I came here, I ended a relationship that was very toxic, and I got hurt. Then I lost my grandmother, and that was hard too. These aren't excuses for how I've been treating you, but I want you to know I feel terrible. I have a hard time with trusting people, Tom. Talking to you makes me forget sometimes how shitty life can be. I don't want to lose that. After all this is over, I would love if you and we continue.
Jake.
What?
I got a call last night. I got fired. A video in which you mentioned my work was uploaded to the internet and my boss saw it.
Oh my god, Tom, I'm so sorry.
Not now.
Tom, if you need anyone to...
I said not now!
Jace Hansen perfectly threads the needle with Tom's vocal delivery, and it significantly enhances the drama in all his scenes. Jace captures Tom's joy, fear, and bewilderment when the mood is light, but just as easily captures his anger, frustration, and sorrow when the mood is heavy. And there are two things that we can take away from this. Number one is that Jace Hansen is the voice director for Disventure Camp for a very good reason, and two, they fully understand the type of character that Tom is. A guy who is constantly trying to figure out what he wants. who he should be, and what he needs to prioritize in his own life. He always strives to do the right thing and help others, but he's also trying to find out what he can do to help himself, to make him happy. And I think it's very telling that he and Jake ended up not working out by the end of the season, since Tom's major flaw was his inability to open up to people, shutting himself off because he wasn't ready to face the rest of the cast as himself. But eventually, Tom was able to take responsibility for his own happiness and allow himself to be vulnerable around others. Primarily due to Jake's help, but Miriam was certainly a major contributor as well. Jake, meanwhile, ended up sinking deeper and deeper as a result of his own paranoia. He took too many things personally without reflecting on his own actions throughout the season, and that was ultimately his downfall, and it's why Tom shot him down in the finale. Tom was able to mature throughout the course of the season, while Jake still had a way to go. But even though Jake's not ready yet, Tom is still willing to give him a chance once he's defeated his own demons. The biggest reason why I think Tom is the best character in Season 1 is because I feel like his resolution was the most earned. Disventure Camp has a lot of characters with tragic backstories. Ellie's impoverished, Alec has family troubles, Lake has family troubles, Jake has a lot going on, but Tom's arc is much stronger because all of it is laid bare on screen. We get to see him at his best and his most vulnerable, and all the while, he's a very consistent and rootable character. And if you take anything away from this video, I just want you to realize that Season 1 Tom really was a special character, and one who definitely deserves to be remembered positively. Because honestly, it wouldn't be the same show without him. And with that, we have reached the end of the list. I hope you all really enjoyed this video because I did spend a lot of time working on it. I know it took a long time to come out, but I hope the wait has been worth it. Thank you all for watching. Consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing because it really does help my channel out. And with all that being said, I will see you all next.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it? She really went on for a full hour, didn't she? You know, I think I'm almost impressed. What about you? What was your favorite part? Oh, right. You're recovering. My mistake. I always forgot how fragile you are. Alright then, I'll talk and you can just listen. I feel like there's been some miscommunication between us lately. I mean, I've been so busy with my life, and you presumably have something to keep yourself occupied besides being abstinent. I don't know. So, let me be clear. You and I made a fucking deal! You don't get to walk out of that because, oh no, I feel bad now! No. I roll the nickels, Carter. You answer to me! You think anyone out there is going to come look for you? No, you idiot! You're not important. You're just Dan! Oh no, did I overstep? I'm so sorry. Let me make it up to you. Please, if there's anything troubling you, you can tell me. Suit yourself. Guess we're doing things my way! Being honest, you have pretty much nothing going for you right now. You're scrawny, you're annoying, and you have the personality of a brick. But maybe I can fix that for you. Granted, I'm not a miracle worker or anything, but I think I could give you a solid makeover. All you need to do is trust the process. By the time they see you, Gabby, Jared, and the audience at home are going to love the new you.